Hello, this is John Genet with ByoNetics. It is Memorial Day, the 26th of May, 2014. I thought I'd take some time today to address the perception of autism being mental retardation. I'm going to do it with a story from a friend of mine. Her name was Shirley. She was talking to me one day. I've known her for years. She was talking about this particular person, and his name was Anthony. And I stopped her in mid sentence and I go, Shirley, who is Anthony? She goes, Anthony is my son. And I said, Shirley, I've known you for years. I never knew you had a son. She goes, well, he's severely mentally retarded. He grew up and lives in a mental facility. And I asked, about him, about his symptoms. He never spoke. He never had emotional contact. Uh, he didn't display any signs of intellectual processing. He was startled by loud sounds, uh, those type of things. And I said, surely I believe that your son is showing signs of autism, not mental retardation. And the signs, of course, are inability to speak, uh, lack of mental focus, not being able to mentally or emotionally connect with people around them, especially the parents. And I said, you might want to address this to see if indeed he's autistic instead of mentally retarded. She says, well, the doctors have always looked at him and defined him as mentally retarded. And I said, well, people who have not been autistic, right, which 99.9% of all professionals are, not autistic, they look at the outside physical presence of the individual. They see a blankness in the face. If you talk to them, they see a turning of the head and moving backwards. They see the presence of hands on the chest like this, inside the chest like this. Basically, what they see is the Dustin Hoffman movement movie where he played a autistic person along with Tom Cruise. And what they don't realize is that these are the signs of autism. These are not the signs of mental retardation, right? And that they can be addressed. Well, Shirley went to the mental facility. She visits her son once a month at that time. And she brought up the possibility of these symptoms being autistic instead of the observation of mental retardation. And in talking with the doctors, she mentioned the fact that Anthony, her son's response to vaccinations, created very high fevers. Right? He seemed to be mentally alert, emotionally balanced, if you will. And after his vaccinations, then we know as the story goes, he lost his ability to speak. Although at this time, Anthony probably had a delay in speech to begin with because he was a boy. It was assumed because you are a boy that there's the possibility of boys developing speech later than girls. And a lot of times they disregard and label it as the inability to develop speech on age-appropriate areas. Usually, if the child is not speaking by 2 and they're a boy, the doctor will go in and say, well, boys are slower to learn speech, let's give them another year. And in Anthony's case, that brought upon the observation of mental retardation. And so they tested Anthony again, and however they chose to go do that, uh, and much uh, to their professionalism, to their ability to accept another possibility, realizing that Anthony had grown up. He was born in the same hospital that housed this mental facility. So he grew up there. The, the nurses, the doctors, the attendants always knew Anthony because at this time he was 35 years old. So he spent 35 years in this facility. So everybody knew them. They had a genuine caring for him and a love, and they would love to see him get better. They just assumed that he couldn't. So um, I suggested that his caregiver at night uh, put on one of our developmental CDs. It's called the Bridge CD at that time. It still is called the Bridge CD. And it has all of the frequencies that repair all of the damaged developmental switches that, once repaired, connect the brain computer to its software, establishes grounding, the child can function in a proper reality. And that neutralizes hyperactivity, develops mental focus, emotional balance. There's no more abrupt responses to loud noises. And they did it. The attendant put in the CD every night. Within about 6 months, there began to be change in Anthony, to the point that they were seeing the beginning of some verbalization. He would say a word back to an individual that he had never said before. You could look in his eyes and know that he was more mentally focused on physical tasks. He was more emotionally aware. You can look in a child's eyes, and that's where the connection happens, is through the eyes, because you can tell by looking at that child if they're having an emotional contact with you or if they're still functioning in an autistic reality. And they saw that connection because Anthony would grab their face, look them in the eyes as if he had only seen them for the first time in 35 years. Within a year's period of time, the doctors decided that Anthony could go into a living assisted facility with 4 other men, which was a huge step outside of Anthony's environment. He was secure in the environment that he knew within the mental facility. He knew everybody. He was he knew the ins and outs of moving around, stuff like that. So they went ahead and put him in a living facility with 4 other men around his same age, in the early 30s, mid 30s. There was 5 of them all together. They had an attendant on staff that provided food. The food was brought in, stuff like that. And Shirley had more of an opportunity to visit him because he was now in a home instead of a facility. It was closer to her house. And so there was the opportunity to develop more of a mother-son connection, or bond, if you will, that she had never had before, or she thought that she never had. And things seemed to go well. Anthony would venture outside, but it was like a dog in a thunderstorm. He was very hesitant about his surroundings, about being involved with too many people at one time, whether it was walking into a store and having a group of people around him, like standing in line or shopping or something like that. That seemed to disrupt his ability to stay calm. But he was seen to be getting a little bit better about it. There, probably about, I don't know, 6 months into his stay, everything seemed to happen in 6 months with Anthony. At about 5 o'clock in the morning, he woke everybody up with music. The 4 other gentlemen that was rooming with him, part of the facility, came down. They were in their 30s, like I said, but they had their fist in their eyes like young kids trying to wake up. And they were standing in front of a piano. And Anthony was playing Chopin on the piano. Nobody ever knew that he knew how to play Chopin because Anthony had never been grounded in his 35 years and functioning in a proper reality. And a functioning in a proper reality evidently allowed Anthony to play Chopin. He had never had any lessons. He seemed to have connected from another time and space. And what was most amazing, as he was playing the piano, playing Chopin, he turned around and for the first time in his life started speaking to these gentlemen, his roommates, if you will, in Old English, right? We don't know why he speaks in Old English. He still does. It seems to be from another time and place that Anthony had an experience, and that seemed to be his language, and he's connected into that memory, and that's what he feels more comfortable in speaking. That's the only way that he comforts himself in speaking, communicating with people. Of course, the person that he's communicating with sometimes thinks that it's odd because it's not our English with slang and stuff like that. It's really proper English that was spoken in the 17 and 1800s. And I want to also say that I don't know if we did Anthony any favors. Yes, we all wanted him to talk. Yes, we all wanted him to make to have mental focus. We wanted to emotionally embrace him. Those are all the things that we wanted for ourselves, but it doesn't mean that that's what Anthony wanted, right? In Anthony's mind, he would have been more secure in the mental facility. He would have been around more friends. He would have had more ways of knowing the ins and outs of getting around the facility, knowing what he could do and what he could get away with, stuff like that. But what's interesting is that since Anthony is grounded to his physical body, function in a proper reality, his developmental switch has been repaired, and he's now connected to a software, you can look in Anthony's face now and see the change in its structure. He doesn't have that blank look anymore. A lot of times the eyes are sunken into the head. Sometimes the face is rounded, oblong. You can look at my face, kind of look at that. But as he became more present in our reality, the energy in that reality began to physically form him into more of what we would look like in that situation, which is quite amazing. So if a doctor tells you that they believe your son is mentally, or your daughter is mentally retarded because of the outward appearance, or that people assume that that child is mentally retarded because of their appearance, because of their actions, because of the placement of their hands, just discount it, right? Realize that there are ways to be able to address that, bring it about like we did in Anthony, right? And that there's always hope. There's always hope. So let me let you go. We've been about 14 minutes into this. I hope this has been informative. If you'd like to speak to me, it's 1-800-280-2802. It's ByoNetics.org, BYONETICS. If you're on the website, please fill out the questionnaire, email it to me so I can respond, so we can know how we might help your child in repairing their autism and being free of it. Okay? Thank you very much for your time.